Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a creative request, which is where a smaller group gets in contact with me and asks me to check out their work. I got an email that said, "Dear Critical Reactions, your YouTube channel is definitely one of our favorites and fills our day with joy. We're an Italian avant-garde new jazz noise band called Klidas, and we're going to promote our new album, No Harmony, which is released in June. We feel close to a certain sound you might be interested in. Some reference bands we have been associated with are Secret Chiefs 3, Black Midi, Horse Lords, Zoo, Ill Considered, Colin, Stetson, Bad Bad Not Good, and Swans. We'd love to have some feedback from you. Wish you a good day. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Best, Manuel." Yeah, so that's a lot of good company to be within. Huge fan of Colin Stetson. Bad Bad Not Good and Black Midi continue to surprise me, even if I haven't found something that really clicks with them. And Swans is, they're Swans. So let's dive into the song's called Not To Dissect. I apologize. I am going to dissect it in the analysis. That's a bit of a joke. All right, let's get into this. Klidas. All right. It's a little off kilter, but it's still a 4/4. Yeah, really eclectic sounds, but it's kind of working. Dude, those double hits, those single hand rolls are impressive. Just the consistency of it. Really nice breath control on that sax. Yeah, so this is actually a 7-beat phrase. It's the second time we've heard one of these. Just shy of a full 2 bars of 4/4. All right. I'm going to be honest. It's very eclectic, very well, noisy. And it's honestly not really my cup of tea, but we're going to dive into it all the same. I'm going to give it everything I got, as I usually do. Um, and there is a lot of stuff to be impressed with here. So, I mean, if you're just going to get this far and turn the video off, just know that I really do admire what's going on here, even if casually I don't know that I would listen to this. Just to start off, the song kicks off with this hyper eclectic, multi layered counterpoint between like the sax and the guitar and the bass and the piano. The piano kind of pedal tones it for a while, so I don't know if I want to include them yet, but they do eventually come in and out of fourth layer. And everybody's working on what I think is polyrhythmic ideas or possibly even polymetric ideas. There's a lot going on. It's tough for me to figure out exactly what's happening on just one listen, but yeah, there's everybody's doing their own thing, and it feels like they're all in different spaces, right? So what I mean by that is like if somebody's working on a 6 beat phrase and somebody's working on an 8 beat phrase, the 6 beat phrase person is going to restart their idea on beat 7. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, right? So that would be the beginning of the phrase. Whereas the seventh beat for the 8 beat person is coming up on the end. They still have 7 and 8, and then they're back to 1. So it feels like everybody is at different places in their uh, riffs, their licks throughout this section. And it only comes together after X amount of beats, which I don't know what X is off of a first listen. But they all come back together for like da 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 da, something like that. This pick a note and lay into this rhythm, and then you fall back into your individual personal riff. And so some of these lines feel like they get interrupted, so they don't get to fully resolve their thing, which definitely tells me that they're working on polymetric ideas because some of at least one of the instruments, I think it's the guitar, feels like it completes a full repetition and then falls into this unified rhythmic sound. So they're definitely working on a different meter or phrasing than some of the other instruments, which feel interrupted to participate in the unified sound. And it is just bonkers chaos. So many different timbres, sonic qualities, musical ideas. It's a lot of a lot. And I think that there isn't a key here either, at least not when dictated by what everyone's playing. It could be a series of uh, layered accidental notes that's creating this feeling of atonality. There might actually be a key, it just feels atonal based on what people are playing. But there's also a chance that this just doesn't have a key here at the beginning. And the idea of atonality I always find as fascinatingly not something I like. Atonality is a fun thing to play with, but it's not something I enjoy listening to. So I found it really interesting that they made me want to listen to this. It's not a sound I generally enjoy. The chaos is a bit more than I'm tend to be comfortable with, but I still found a groove and an overall idea, and I kind of got into it. I was like, yeah, this is not a bad section. It's very cool. So, Klidas, if you're watching this, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I hope it's not like I don't know, the I and the A can also have different inflections, but I'm going to keep saying Klidas. Um, you know, casually, like I said, this isn't my cup of tea, but I mean, you guys are killing it, right? Don't change a thing just because it isn't what I normally listen to. You guys are just doing an awesome job here. I'm trying to stay on the positives. I want to focus on that. After this section, though, we kind of move into a noise rock, post metal kind of thing going on here where we overdrive a lot of instruments and we begin to unify the sound in a way that allows many of the instruments to work together rather than to work independently. And that allows something pretty typical to happen, which is a removal of space. When everybody's working independent, the instruments have only the power and width of themselves, which makes it feel, despite all the layers, a bit empty in comparison to the section that comes after it. When the instruments begin to work together and play similar lines, especially, we can even contrast this in the previous section with that unified rhythmic idea. The sound is amplified and it feels like we're filling up the sound sphere a lot better, or a lot more, I should say. It's not better. We're just filling it more. And we're kind of removing this idea of isolation and space in the mix. And if you're watching the volume visualizer over there, you will notice that the sections where they tend to play similar ideas or the same ideas across multiple instruments, the volume tends to be louder. It fills more space, it gets larger. That's the amplification of sound waves at work. Um, And so we have a section here that feels more driving, it feels more immediate, it feels even a little less meandering, even though we still have that same level of composition in the melody writing. Nothing's really changed on that front. We just have less moving lines and more unified lines, which makes it feel more present. Additionally, I'm pretty sure the guitars kick it up into overdrive as well here, and we just have a larger, more distorted sound overall. And so we end up feeling like this post-metal thing, like I was saying. It's very textural, very atmospheric, and we sort of bounce between these two ideas throughout a majority of the song. As we explore new soundscapes, new sections, it really is, should we have a wide sound, very unified, or should we have more of a sparse, layered one? And we get to hear a multitude of those different different approaches to those two sides. I found it interesting as well that the saxophone fits so well in this. The opening makes sense. It's very jazzy. The keyboardist has a bit of a fuzzy tone, and the guitar is a little distorted, but overall, it's a jazzy sort of combination of timbres. But once we kick it into that metally, post-metal stuff, the saxophone should feel out of place, and it doesn't. And I think some of that is just that the saxophone has a bit of a bite to it anyways. But the saxophonist also puts a little bit of extra compression in their air control, which is what I was talking about earlier. More air pressure, you get a bit of that natural compression on it. The saxophone and the trumpet, actually brass in general, are just really good at getting that extra oomph out of, out of their instrument. So maybe that helps a little bit as well. But then we move over to a sax solo, which I thought was an interesting decision to go on, but it actually ended up working very well. I think the song really needed a melodic break. A lot of this is, well, I shouldn't say melodic because there are melodies, there's riffs, there's licks all over the place, but a centralized melodic moment to say, the band's going to all back down to foundational stuff. We might have a couple ideas here and there that are going into that noisier, chaotic stuff, but for the most part, listen to the saxophone and the journey they're going to take you on. And I really loved that. The song can be very overwhelming, and I think you all recognized that and said, well, let's have a little pocket here and reduce the complexity just a hair. Not a lot. It's still a chaotic song from beginning to end, but you found that moment to let the listener breathe, and I'd even say to let your song breathe. It is a very full song, and having a moment for the song to release some of the tension, I think really helps with the pacing of the track. The last thing I want to touch on is just the raw skill everywhere. I mean, first of all, just the performance side of things. Playing anything like this in the avant-garde, free jazz kind of stuff, where everybody's doing their own thing in their own time signature and their own key sometimes even. At least I find it's very difficult, especially if you come from a academic background. You're taught to play in key with your fellow members. You're taught to play in time with your fellow members. And, once you get into a tonality and all of this heavy, syncopated counterpoint stuff, at least for me, even 15, 20 years into being a trumpet player, there's still that instinct that got drilled into me in my first like 5, 6 years of music, to play with those around me, to be in tune with those around me, to be in tempo with those around me. And so I've always found it more difficult to play stuff like this, and really takes a lot of mental effort to force everybody else's sound out of my play space and focus on what I'm doing against probably the drummer, possibly. That way I stay in time with the band, but I'm also in my own pocket like the music wants me to be. And for all of them to sit in this room together and play this, phenomenal. But then just looking at each person's specific parts, I mean, the guitarist had some really tricky fingerings in there. The bassist had a beautiful moving line in our opening section, and that was just an introduction to some of the bass work we would hear throughout. The drummers got polyrhythmic chops for days. I love that one-handed double hit roll across the drums. Single stroke double hit. Just the precision of it. Each of the rolls was equidistant apart as far as time goes. It was just do 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 do. It's so perfect. That it's robotic. So like I gotta point that out, but like the general polyrhythmic work of it all, the saxophonist, the breath control, the timbre control, really pulling specific emotions out of the instrument. And there was one part, just played for a lot longer than I was expecting. I didn't see any circulatory breathing, so that was all one breath. Just really great respiratory strength, I guess. I feel like I'm missing somebody here. Oh, the keyboardist. Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't get as good of a listen to what the keyboardist was doing. At the beginning, I heard the pedal tone, and then I saw well, like an eighth note run. But maybe just uh, the keyboardist is the heartbeat of the song, or the center. And like any good rhythm section, we talk about in jazz music, the bass and drums are very rarely the technical ones, but they have a really big job of keeping the band together. Maybe that's the keyboardist's job. They're not there to be as flashy as everybody else, but they have to be technical and precise in order to be that home for everybody to work around. So I don't know. That might be something I notice in another listen, or maybe another song that might be more keyboard oriented. But here, at least, they seem to be a bit downplayed. But that just pushes them into being the glue that holds everything together. And when you get something like this, you need some glue to hold everything together, because it can fall apart real easily. There's no lyrics to dissect on this one. I don't really have any feelings of theme or like a story that this told me. I really connected with it more on an intellectual than an emotional area, primarily because there were so many technical things to think about, between time signature changes and polyrhythmic ideas, polymetric ideas, complex licks, listening to how the saxophone's playing. There's a lot of, well, pretty much 90% of the time, I was focusing on technique and notes more so than just absorbing the song. So I don't really have any ideas about what the song might be trying to say or what story it's trying to tell. I didn't get a chance to connect with it that way. But it was a neat track overall. Even if it isn't something I'd normally listen to, I still found it enthralling, which is a pretty big compliment, I think. Um, and I do want to check out more. Y'all said June for your new album. I'll have to throw that into my list and see what's going on. maybe I only make it a few songs in. Maybe it really isn't my cup of tea, but I'm intrigued at least from right here to see what y'all do. Just because this is such a different project, and very little that I've heard like it. It merges free jazz and post metal, and I can't say I've heard anything like that. So y'all killed it, and I'm looking forward to more. Those are my thoughts, though, on Klidas's Not To Dissect. What did y'all think? Put your thoughts down in the comment section. Let me know if you enjoyed it, if there's anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said, or correct me on, or give me your own perspective on, or anything like that. Above the comment section is a description box. Usually I'll put my links in there, but instead I'm going to put Klidas's links. You can find anything that I can find about them. Looks like we have social media and some streaming platforms. Above the above the description box, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Make sure you head over to theirs. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, hearts, favorites, wherever you end up finding more about them, social media and stuff. Just show them some love from the channel. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to check out an album. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.